joins us now. Congressman, good morning. Good to see you.
Hey, good morning. Good to be with you, David.
I do want to start with something that I think you're trying to address, which is that the politics around guns becomes so difficult because you have on the one hand saying anybody who wants any abridgment of gun rights, that they want to just take away the Second Amendment. And there are those who are progressives who do want to ban certain kinds of guns, which certainly offends a lot of gun owners and rights advocates. How do we change the approach here where gun owners, gun rights enthusiasts say there's a role to be played here to try to deal with the fact that so many weapons are used in these kinds of events?
There is. Listen, I'm a Second Amendment advocate, but just as heartbroken this week as every other American. David, the politics of blame aren't working, and they're not reflecting our better angels and American values. You know, on the left, when folks say Republicans are complicit in the shooting, when they yell shame on the House floor, it's wrong. So too, though, is wrong the inaction on our side of the aisle and comments from, frankly, our presidential nominee on our side of the aisle. The politics of blame are getting us nowhere, and it's heartbreaking. These solutions are just within reach. If we drop the partisan divide, we can do this. That's why I've circulated legislation to bridge that divide.
So let's talk about that. So if I'm on a terror watch list, David Gregory, if I'm on a terror watch list, I can still go out and buy a weapon if I were to pass a background check, right? That's already on the books. You're saying, no, we should change that. That I shouldn't. If I'm on a terror watch list, I should not be able to buy a gun. You're saying, let's make it so I can't buy a gun, but there's a caveat that you want to include in that.
Look, it's common sense. If you're on a watch list, you shouldn't buy a gun. But I will tell you the Democratic proposal of the past is flawed because it provides no due process for an individual, like Ted Kennedy was, who's wrongly on that list to petition to be removed. My legislation does this. It says if you're on the watch list, you can't buy a gun. But if you're turned down because you're on the watch list, the government has 10 days to notify you of that, and you are entitled to a due process hearing within 30 days, where the government must prove, by a preponderance of the evidence, why you should be prohibited from purchasing a firearm. The proceeding's secret to protect privacy, but the individual's entitled to all the unclassified information used against them.
This is interesting. This is very interesting because basically early on in an investigation of whether or not an individual is a terrorist or a potential terrorist, you want that individual to be notified that they're on the list and to be able to confront some of that evidence. And I just want to play a piece of sound from FBI Director Jim Comey, who has opposed this on these grounds. Listen to what he says.
If someone on the watch list purchases or attempts to purchase a firearm, an immediate alert is sent to the agents who are the source of the suspicion about that individual, so they can incorporate that information into their investigation. It's a little bit challenging for us because known or suspected means it hasn't been adjudicated in every case that somebody is a terrorist. It's somebody we're investigating. So we don't want to obviously blow our investigation.
So the challenge here, Congressman, is that we want investigators to connect the dots. We won't want them to miss shooters like in this case. Do you worry that what you're proposing would do that, would hamper their ability to investigate?
No, because understand, if you're on the no-fly list and you go to buy a ticket, you're going to be turned down as well. This also creates flexibility for the government to have 10 days for how they notify the individual why they were turned down. If it is an immediate investigation and immediate emergency, there's flexibility for the government to do that. Understand, though, I drafted this bill. I have not yet introduced it. I circulated it to all of my colleagues to say, help me make it better. How do we solve this, Republicans and Democrats? David, let's inject some radical common sense into this issue. On my side of the aisle, if you're on the no-fly list, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun. It's common sense. But on the left, you shouldn't be able to throw due process and Second Amendment rights under the bus simply for a political agenda.
And yet,
this politics of divide is heartbreaking, and it's going to destroy us.
The point is well made, but certainly throwing due process out, there's lots of things we do in society in the name of protection of our, that we willfully give up aspects of our personal liberty. When my 10-year-old son goes through a random screening at the airport, it's fairly ridiculous, but I have ceded that right for the greater good. Why don't you think some due process rights ought to be abridged here?
What I am saying is this. You're on the watch list without any notification. That's the way it currently works. The FBI can continue its investigation. But if you go to purchase a firearm, which is a constitutionally protected privilege, and the government says you're not allowed to, I believe that individual's entitled to know why. It can be done in a private hearing where only unclassified information is presented to that individual, But I believe an American citizen is due to know why their government is turning down a constitutional protection. Is there an easy solution here? No, but we can balance due process, Second Amendment rights with our national security interests and the common sense of not letting a terrorist buy a gun.
You've made your points, two quick political points. Speaker Ryan has said that some
Sure.
of these measures are an attack on the Second Amendment. Do you think your legislation or any legislation will pass the House?
It should. You know, I'm from Florida. We left a state that was united in mourning together Sunday night. I got on a plane and went to a Congress that is divided. For no other reason. The American people are begging for unity, and we have a Congress that's peddling partisan divide simply for a winner-take-all November agenda, and it's wrong. We can protect the Second Amendment while also protecting our communities and due process and keeping terrorists from buying guns.
And before you go, what about running for the Senate yourself? You, of course, have talked about running for the seat that's being vacated by
Right.
Senator Marco Rubio, of course, ran unsuccessfully for the presidency. Where's your head on
Right.
that this morning?
You know, I've been running for 10 months. We've been polling out front. Marco's saying he's getting in. I would love to announce this on national news this morning, but I owe it to my community to wait until noon today. I'll let my community know my intentions.
Oh, I thought that just between us thing might work, but I guess not.
Just between us and the American people.
Right,
You
right.
got it.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it very
got
much.
it.
Allison.